Good morning. Happy Friday, if it is Friday, whenever you're listening to this. And if it's not, just go ahead and stop and watch it on Friday. I'll wait. Alright, is it Friday now? My daughter didn't close the door very well. So, I've got success happening. You know, pretty standard. I had this idea. There's a couple ways to Bluetooth the Signum, and the simplest way is to just use an adapter, a separate adapter, and give that a battery pack and, you know, charging ports and stuff like that. And that's possible, but I couldn't really figure out an artful way of building it into the keyboard, because the keyboard is like, I mean, there's not a lot to work with here. I mean, there's not a lot of space for anything, really. Normally, I would build on top of it, but not being able to build up from it is, like, all of the parts that I have are too large to build up from it. So I entertained the notion of building below it and just making a case that has a cavity or a pocket below the circuit board. So, and I don't have anything to do with this at work, I just brought it to show you all. This is the kind of minimalist design I was going for. This should have a 10mm pocket and then a ledge for the PCB to sit on. And I designed it in, since it was an SVG and since I had to get all the angles right and all this, you know, protrusion and extrusion, I wanted to use Tinkercad, but I couldn't import the SVG for the board's footprint to get it exactly right. And then it wasn't the right scale, and I just had to tweak a bunch of things, but once I got it, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is accurate. So after I got it there, I printed up a corner of it that had the contour on the side just as a test, and it fit. So as amazed as I am to say, it worked, and it's the proper size and everything. I guess if I've thought about something enough, I usually get it right the first time. But so that's obviously half of it. I needed a joining piece, a shape, and I figured the 3 was a good idea. Right. So the second half is printing up today, and it should be done in like 6 hours or something. But once that's done, I'll snap them together and tear the back off of my Signum and get it attached. So I'll probably work out some little ledges, snaps, things on the side. The other thing is, it's pretty thick because I have stuff in there, and there's got to be lithium batteries in there, so I want it to be, you know, secure. But I'm thinking about this, and I think there is a potential for making a minimalist PCB back cover that would add a little bit of rigidity to the back of the keyboard. So if I get this fitted together and everything fits and the PCB fits, I'll make another one that is basically minimal thickness, so that you can take your PCB and tear off the back end or clean it up and just snap it right into the back cover. And then you can, you know, unsnap it and do whatever. Well, yeah. There was someone who had used who had mounted a piece of wood to the back of his. And I was like, hey, you know, you can just drill straight through the PCB as long as you look where there's not a, you know, where there's a spot where there's no traces, and just use a drill that you don't really like because it's a it's fiber, it's glass, it'll dull your drill. And he was like, no, I just used one of the switch holes. It's like, oh yeah, there's tons of switch holes that are unused. So there might already be openings in there, but this doesn't detract from my desire to make some actual, proper mounting holes. That said, you could just like set it on a piece of wood and drill straight through the PCB and straight through the wood, and then attach it. But obviously trying to do something different here, see if people are interested in it. So then you'll have the PCB and then like a little lip around the edge of, of color of some kind. In my case, orange. So, surprise, surprise. So that's kind of cool. I managed to get the fancy PocketChip keyboard installed, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then it was kind of jammed up, and it was kind of tight fitting, and I broke one of the snaps off, and I was like, oh, this will probably be fine. There's another snap, and it kind of wasn't fine. So I was like, well, what if I just press it really hard and see if it's the faceplate, and nothing seemed to be working quite right. So there was another version of it that was less fiddly to put together, but it used basically the same separate button set, where the buttons are all one unit, and then the slider is a faceplate instead of the individual buttons. So that would keep this attached so it doesn't slide around. But aside from it sliding around, this thing is super useful. It makes all of this very, very accessible, and it makes it clicky, and you can touch type a lot better. So there's a different version that has an attached faceplate. I'll try that one out and see if that works better, because the other one was like supposed to be super awesome, and it was just really fiddly, and it had too much mechanics, I think. Too many things had to be exactly right. I'm sure if you put it together, in a frictionless vacuum, it would work just fine, but I don't function in frictionless vacuums. I can't breathe for one thing. So the other thing is these paddles. So the paddles have been neat ideas that I've been kind of messing around with for a while. I have had other people print them, but I've never had paddle prints of the quality that I'm generating right now on my 3D printer. So what I'm going to do is set up some sets of paddles, some test units, and I had struggled with deciding how to attach the paddles to the board, because there really wasn't a great way of doing it. I was going to have mount holes that line up with the switch holes, the alternative switch locations, which maybe would have worked. But what I'm realizing right now is I would rather it float around rather than be attached to the board. And by float around, I mean not float around. I mean be a little bit more adjustable based on the switch. So what I'm going to do is make it captive to the base of the switch. So it will basically make a little nest for the switch, and the switch will set in it, and the bottom of the switch and the bottom of the unit will be flush, so that once you solder that switch in place, the switch's solder and the switch's placement is what is holding the paddle in the correct orientation. I think it might need a little bit of like white glue or something to just kind of even out if there's a little wobbliness, but that depends on how tightly I can design it to fit the base of the switch. So a little super glue probably wouldn't go amiss, but that's definitely a far cry from the blob of hot glue, the solution that I've been using. So if I can get those to be easy to install and reliable and I guess not fidgety, not jittery, get them to be a good fit, then I'll start selling those, because it's relatively easy for me to print large sets of them. that like a senator? Huh. That was strange. Anyway, it was probably the wife of a senator. That's, I'm not going to share that. It was interesting, at least. Where was I? Yes, so if I can get the paddles to be fitted to the base of the Switch and, you know, be nice and secure and not super fiddly and easy to install, then yeah, I'll be able to sell those hopefully pretty cheaply. I don't know how I'm going to be able to ship them, but I'll figure it out. Because I really do think the paddles add a lot to your thumb clusters. Because the thumb clusters are, you know, I have a Signum with the Kale, whatever, low profile switches, and it's handy and I like it, and I wouldn't say they're crisp. You know what? They kind of feel like Topre. They kind of feel like clouds, bosom clouds. What is the meme? Rubber dome. That's what they feel like. They feel like rubber domes. That's kind of interesting. They feel a little bit more mechanical, but I know what that feel is. That's interesting. Anyways, that one doesn't have paddles on it because it can't. It's a layered wood design, a birch wood design, and it can't accommodate the paddles. Yeah, it can't. It's not for the paddles. Never mind. And not having those paddles is super, maybe not super annoying. It's pretty annoying. It's kind of annoying. It is bothersome. But with the paddles, you get to just like, you know, it's less motion. You push the key to the side like that. You just move your thumb in or out, and then you push down to push that key. I'm pretty happy about this because I had wanted something like this for a long time, and I went through some of my old notes, and I've got drawings of like weird 4-way switch captive things that you like put your thumb into, and then you get all this range of motion, but it's mechanically transferred into some other switches, and it never worked out. And this one has been working so extremely well, and you can't argue with it. It reduces motion. It's straight up. There is additional motion that you do not have to do in order to activate these switches. Wow, a snowplow. Didn't think it was that cold. So the paddles are hopefully coming to my website soon. I'll get them tested out. I mean, right now I've got the normal version that works just fine. I've completely tested those. I guess you can buy those. I don't know. Email me if you want some. I'll figure out pricing. I really don't know. I had to have someone else print them before, and now I have to test mine and make sure it prints correctly. I can't imagine why it would. It actually probably will print better than all of these. You know, I got those other ones professionally printed, and I'm fairly certain that my prints are way better than theirs. And I'm on a pretty cheap printer. I don't know. That's weird. Now, the 3D printing market seems to be, you know, there's always the rocky phase, and then things get really expensive, and then they start to get less expensive, and then they start to hit a balance. It seems to be at that balance, I guess. It has been for a year or so. Maybe 2 years. I'm just kind of amazed that I just set up this printer. I mean, I followed the instructions and everything, and watched all the tips and tricks and pitfalls and all that to get things set up properly, but I don't know how many hours I have through it. I'm not even through my first spool, so maybe I shouldn't talk. Maybe it'll all crash crash soon. So far it's been extremely high quality and extremely reliable. It did have a resume. We had a power failure, a power loss, and then I came home and it said power loss, resume? I said yes. And then it promptly knocked the bed off of the adhesion bed off of the heating bed. It just like slid it off. So it probably had an extruder contact or crash with the piece. But you know, I killed it and restarted it, and it picked up just fine. So I mean, it is pretty impressive. I couldn't help but, see if you get that, couldn't help but emboss a little bit. That's pretty cool. So we'll see how that turns out, and I'll figure out how to get those paddles going. Is this a lip? That's interesting. I wonder if that's a different size. Yeah, we'll see. Cool. So the other one will be ready when I get home, and then I'll snap it together and see how it looks, and fit a battery in here, and take apart that Bluetooth module, get everything connected. The cool thing is, once I get this connected, if I want to, I can reverse mount this. Because this will mount, if you mount it in the same orientation, you can mount it on the underside, and then just have the wire connected to it, and then have the wire run up to these 4-pin connectors here. And then from there, you can, 4-pin it out to a USB cable, or 4-pin it into, underside where it connects to the Bluetooth module or something like that. I'm still working on the adapter board, and by that I mean I have made no progress on it. But once I do, the adapter board will make it so that I can really start writing code for the keyboard on those different controllers, and make some progress there. Oh yeah, train stuff. This would be great to print. This stuff is wicked expensive. It's not wicked expensive. It's just, it makes no sense. It's like a long cut piece of wood that they're just like punch some rivets through. These are probably just nails. No, they're rivets. Yeah. And then glue some magnets on the end. And ta-da! $4. That's cool. Okay, cool. I guess I'm done, but I'm gonna keep talking to you. I wanted to make like a clip or something for this. Maybe it outfit my notebook more. Alright, just stop.